I think if I hear you call me Becky one more time, six-pack, I'm gonna pop your tops. All six of them.
Who are you?
Hey, this is Matt once again. Welcome back to another video. There's another paid request, this time from David. Thank you so much for that. He wanted me to rank the Freddy Krueger kills throughout the films from, I believe he said worst to best. But I think it'd be best for me to do from best to worst. Just to explain a bit more. It'd just be more comfortable for me to explain it that way. But yeah, Freddy Krueger, I go back and forth between which is my favorite, Freddy Krueger or Jason Voorhees. I grew up more with Freddy Krueger in his films and Nightmare on Elm Street films. Jason Voorhees I found later in the Friday the 13th movies, so then usually my answer is that, because even though it's I first saw them years and years ago, that still feels like the newer franchise, weirdly enough, between the two, as in the more fresh. But if I had to think about it, I would say I'm more of a Nightmare on Elm Street guy, Freddy Krueger, than Jason. And I love Jason, love a lot of the Friday the 13th films. But I would say if you look at each franchise, I'm probably a bit more into Elm Street because of the imagination and creativity. Not to discount Friday the 13th. Now when I'm looking at these kills, I would say usually the ones that are more creative, because it's dreams. When you have dreams, the sky's the limit. Those are the ones I gravitate a bit more towards. My favorite kill in all the Elm Street films is from Part 4, The Dream Master. Anytime I have the intro to my channel and from my videos, and you hear that music, that is from Elm Street 4, The Dream Master, which is my favorite Elm Street film, and my favorite incarnation of Freddy Krueger. I love the style, I love the energy, I love Renny Harlin's direction, I love Lisa Wilcox as Alice, and the kills, especially that one where Debbie gets turned to a fucking cockroach, thanks to the help of Screaming Mad George and his effects. And to me, that's just the most creative, disgusting. It gives me the goosebumps just thinking about it, let alone watching it. I could watch it, I would go, just the fucking, the skin of the arms and the face as this giant cockroach. You better check in. You don't check out. Incredibly creative and solid special effects. And just the most gruesome to me. The most gruesome, like, how, like, think about being turned to a fucking cockroach in that way, and your fucking face just, it just felt the most, yeah. So that's number one. Number two, Philip from Elm Street 3, The Dream Warriors. Again, the creativity of having your fucking veins up, control like a puppet, to Freddy to walk your ass off, to be deemed as a suicide. idea and the creativity with that, they, just like Elm Street 4 built it up where she doesn't like cockroaches here, with he had done this and he makes these little puppets. Freddy uses that. Just the idea of making the veins, the strings of the puppet. Again, the creativity really... That's one of the many, many reasons why the Elm Street remake sucked ass. Because fuck creativity. As if we haven't had, 7, 8 Elm Street films before. 8 if you include Freddy vs. Jason. Like, come on. You can't... You can try to put the Pandora back in the box. Doesn't always work. And Philip, I really... Like I said, the creativity of that... Really solid. It's just... The cockroach one gives me even more of the goosebumps. But... Pretty close with the Phillips death. Number 3... Ron Grady. I think that's because I felt really sorry, but it didn't make me mad. Like, much lower on the list is the deaths of Nancy, her dad, Kincaid, because those made me mad. So emotionally, I'm like, that's fucking lame. While this, I like Ron Grady and Number on Elm Street Part 2, Freddy's Revenge, played by Robert Russler. I liked him. I liked his character. It didn't make me mad. It just really made me feel sorry, and the fact that it was his best friend possessed by Freddy to do that, and also Mark Patton's performance when he sees the reveal, and Freddy's just laugh at him. You motherfucker, you did this. Just the ultimate mind fuck. And that's one of the reasons I like Freddy's Revenge, is that there's not another Freddy film that Freddy gives as much of a mind fuck as he does to the lead character in that movie. It's like a nice take on, almost Jekyll and Hyde, but possession. It was a really cool idea. I like Freddy's Revenge. I think Part 2's underrated. Try to do something different. Doesn't mean I want it to be the norm, but it was a difference I enjoyed, despite some silly shit like the birds going apeshit and exploding. But I like Part 2. I wish I could see what happened to Jesse and Lisa. The continuation of those characters. That's what pissed me off about it, but... And with Ron Grady, even the little simple fact of the claws going through the door and you see it slide down, you did enough of that gruesome, but your mind fills in the rest. I remember that, emotionally going, it hit that right beat of, it made me so mad I was out of it, but, made me feel sorry. Number 4, I hate to say it, Dan from Elm Street 5. I'm not a fan of Elm Street 5, but him being turned into a motorcycle is the best part of that movie. It has a pretty damn imaginative death scene with some really good effects. It's like something out of anime. In a way, you're driving a motorcycle and you're turned into a fucking motorcycle. That's pretty damn creative. And the effects guys were on their A game. I feel that... Does he do the line from Top Gun? The need for speed. So yeah, despite that film, I always did like that death scene. I know if you got the VHS, it's a little bit more blood, a little bit more uncut. And I liked him in Part 4. Sad to see him go, but at least he got a damn good death scene to send him off. So yeah, number 5, Glenn. I mean, come on, in the top 5, I gotta put the Johnny Depp. It's, I don't want to say iconic, but when people think of Nightmare on Elm Street, they think of Johnny Depp being pulled into the fucking bed and this whole geyser of blood filling up, even pushing like the pillows to the fucking ceiling. It made me wonder, like, what was the actual remains they found? Because, okay, that's the dream portion. And then the one guy's like, oh, the coroner's, puking his guts out. I know they shot something that was cut out where Johnny Depp's body was put back up. But he looked fine, like he had blood on him, but it's not like his no face or his guts were open. It's just his body's up and then he's laying there, he has blood on him. I'm like, if that was the original intention, I'm like, okay, is that why the coroner's puked his guts out? I just see why they cut it out, because it leads more to imagination of what's left of his body. And like, again, being pulled in the bed, very dynamic image, especially if you're doing a film about a dream stalker. Plus the fact, it's most famous victim, Johnny Depp. So I gotta put it in the top 5. Number 6, another from Elm Street 4, my favorite, Sheila. Good effects of her being sucked the life out of her. So you see her get thinner and thinner and thinner. But then in reality, she's got asthma. So it's a nice juxtaposition of, and this is what happens in the dream world, but and that's a nice, very effects-laden way to visualize he gave her asthma, the biggest asthma attack. Again, good effects, creative, and Freddy played on, once again, the fears or the flaws, so to speak, of his victims, which is what Freddy did best. Number 7, it's not really specific, but the party deaths in part 2, where he's just going to town. Dude, it's cool to see, Freddy Krueger just go apeshit. I love the creativity, but once in a while it's nice to see Freddy Krueger. He goes apeshit. That's why I don't understand people go, well, it's silly because look how short he is. Yeah, and he's burnt up and he's got razor blade claws that he guts someone and he slashes someone's face. I'm not fucking with him if he's 4'2" or 5'3". I'm not fucking with him. You can fuck with him. I go sayonara. I'll be over here. He's too short. Tell it to a guy with razor blades that will cut your face and gut your entrails out. So yeah, that's one reason I like that scene in part 7. Freddy cut loose. Literally. Number 8. Will from Elm Street 3, The Dream Warriors. I like the idea of the Wizard Master, the build up to it with the... I think it's more the build up than the kill. Because the kill, is in the neck. But the whole scene, the build up, using his powers, didn't work this time. He's the Wizard Master. Sorry, kid. I don't believe in fairy tales. I like that line. Shows, once again, the brutality. Like, right here. Like, not in the stomach, like right there. Just, where he did it, too, felt like it would be more painful. Like, here or something. So, Number 9, Tina. I mean, come on, if you don't do a top 10 Freddy Tales, you gotta have Tina from the first movie. I mean, it's a bit lower because that's always shown. And the other ones are shown not as much. So, it's like, okay, it's diminished a little bit because it's always brought up. So, the power of it is diminished a bit. But it's still, if Freddy's don't have a first kill, that's one to do it. Where the poor lady is put up, slash the shit, and then falls down of blood. The idea is a good way to start your movie off. Well, it's not the beginning, but you know what I mean. And then number 10, I put Jennifer from Elm Street 3. The fact that Freddy gets to say the line, "Welcome to prime time, bitch. lifts her up and smashes her against the TV. Very memorable. There's a part of me that wonders if I should put that higher, because it's a pretty creative death. You know what? I'm going to switch that with Will. I'm going to put that as part 8. I mean, number 8. Yeah, that would be number 8. Because the Freddy coming out of the TV and the arms, it's even more creative of the death, and then slamming her head to the TV, which for some reason they thought she committed suicide, because we know how many people will jump and torpedo themselves to a TV up top. That happens all the time. I always do that. I always get a running start and do a whole Superman into the TV. And that happens to that's how everybody does the suicide, right? But that would be number 8, and then Tina number 9, and then Will the Wizard number 10. Number 11, Carlos from Freddy's Dead. I like Freddy's Dead despite how goofy it is. And the whole idea of the earpiece and the way that it's getting bigger and bigger and his head pops like a zit, and how Freddy's just an asshole. And the build-up helps as well. How he'll do certain things and gives him a nosebleed after he puts on the wrong earpiece. Like one pin that he takes out, and then he has a bunch of pins just to fuck with him. And then the chalkboard. Nice gory effect. And creative, again, the creativity. I think this is a bit lower because I like Freddy's Dead, but it probably would not be in my top 5 films of Freddy Krueger. That'd be 4, 3, Wes Craven's New Nightmare. At one point I said 2 then 1, but I gotta go 1 then 2. 1 then 2. Because I like part 2. Part 1, Wes Craven did a good job with that. So I'll go with 4, 3, Wes Craven's New Nightmare, 1 then 2. But next month I might say 2 then 1. I do think 2 is a bit underappreciated. And it's only looked at as gay. I'm like, there's a lot more to it than that, in my opinion. But I do like Freddy's Dead, but and I think it's a fun movie. But it's lesser than the others because of the goof factor. The makeup on Freddy is not the best. Better than part 5, but I think it's the way they lit Freddy Krueger in that. It looks a bit like the light's shining too brightly on it or something. I don't know. But again, Freddy's Dead Final Nightmare, I do think it's a fun movie. But Carlos, and then number 12, Spencer. I like the idea of him being sucked into a video game and smacked into it. As goofy and as stupid as it is, it's still pretty creative. And Freddy has some fun lines. You've got the power, Gorilla Glove. Great graphics. Just an ultimate asshole troll. That helps a bit as well. It makes it a bit fun. Number 13, Joey getting pulled into the waterbed. You get some nice titties, pulled in the waterbed. At the end, feel bad because, Joey wanted... That's a bit lower down because that's the one thing about Elm Street 4. It's my favorite, but, killing off the Dream Warriors and killing them off so quickly. I guess Joey I could deal with. I liked them, but I like Kincaid and Kristen more in part 3. Plus, nice. At least it created with the waterbed and how's this for wet dream? It's a pretty good line. So I gotta put a bit up for moments like that. Number 14, Taryn. Dinner high on her own supply, making his finger knives as well turn to needles. That's pretty creative. I mean, as to why it's lower down the list, eh, I guess I would, you know what, I'm going to put that number 11. Taryn. Yeah, so it'd be Jennifer, no, it'd be number 8, Jennifer, you're welcome to Primetime Bitch. 9, Tina from the first movie. 10, Will on the Wizard Master. Then 11, Taryn, what a rush. Then Carlos. Then Spencer, the video game. Then Joey. Because I do remember pretty neat, like her marks, almost like eyeballs, like they're winking at her, and it's a pretty good line, what a rush. So that was, the creativity in that I would put above the others. Plus Elm Street 3 is a better movie. Then we're kind of getting to the lesser ones, like Mark in the comic book in part 5. There's some creative angle in that too, but the whole Super Freddy, don't give a shit about Super Freddy, he was more annoying. And I like the effect of him turned to a comic book. That was pretty cool. And then being turned to, you know, paper and Freddy. And that, again, there's some still creativity in there, but again, I think just I don't think it's a bad death scene, but just him being a superhero for a bit and the Super Freddy stuff, it seemed a bit more corny. Just seemed a bit cornier than it should. And that's the thing with Elm Street 5. It tries to be dark and gothic, but then at times is rather corny. It had this weird two-sided thing that didn't quite fit together. Which is one of the reasons why Elm Street 5 I don't think works that well for me. It's like, well, which are you? Like, pick a direction. John Doe from Freddy's Dead. I like that character in Freddy's Dead, and pretty much the whole parachute, he gets impaled, and like, I don't know, just something about that death, just... That's when Freddy pushes out the thing like a Roadrunner Looney Tunes cartoon. Maybe it's just a bit too silly for my taste, I don't know. Honestly, I love Wes Craven's New Nightmare, but it's not for the death scenes. I mean, they're alright. I mean, one's pretty much the first movie, the first scene, for a reason. One is it cuts a few people at the beginning. One, it kills a guy driving the truck, who's Heather Langenkamp, her character's husband. But yeah, you don't really... To be honest, Wes Craven's New Nightmare, it's one of my favorites because of the story, not because of the kills. Again, when you think of the kills, they're kind of lame. They're kind of lame. They're not as creative as you would think in New Nightmare. And yeah, it's more the story and the performances. So that's why they're lowered down on the list. Rod in the first movie, I mean, with all the creativity, like the brutality of Tina, and then the creativity of Johnny Depp, and then the guy, he just... Hain, being Hun. I always thought that, really? That's it? I mean, I could excuse it because this is a part 1, and it was, you know, starting off. But you look back, go, okay, he gets Hun. It seems very mundane compared to how Freddy is killed in the variety of other ways. Marge, which is the mom in part 1. That's lower down the list. There's really not much to say about it. It's almost an aftermath. Like, I guess Freddy was on fire and landed on the mom, who I guess was too drunk to notice. You know, the coach. I don't need to see Marshall Bell naked. And then also the actor wasn't Robert Englund. It was, well, we don't need Robert Englund. We got a stunt man. So you could tell with the way he moves like he got shit in his pants. So he's like you could tell it's not Robert Englund. And why does he need to whip him in the ass with a towel? I don't fucking know, but it's a nice gory moment. But it's like, okay, you don't need him to whip his ass with a towel, and like I said, I don't need to see Marshall Bell naked. So it's a bit lower on the list. Kristen in part 3, same with Kincaid in part 3. That was more just being mad, even though it wasn't the same actress in part 3 to... No, part 4. Part 4. Kristen Kincaid's deaths in part 4. They were in part 3, and the actress Patricia Arquette didn't come back for part 4. But their deaths in part 4 is like, do you need to kill them that quickly? At least have Kincaid, like he said, fucking move to Chicago. Or do something like that. The fact that you kill both of them off... And then Kristen... There's not much to say about the death. She just thrown into a fire, burned, and like, here's my power. Just, I don't know, just really not much to the death. It's almost so quick you barely notice. And again, there's really not much to say effects-wise or creativity-wise. She just burned. And Kincaid just pissed me off. He's one of my favorite characters. See, that, like... That was more, I felt bad, but I felt more pissed. Donald and Nancy is very near the bottom of the list because Donald is John Saxon when he died in part 3. I thought that was such a lame death for a character in the first movie. He just smacked, he's impaled, and almost quickly forgotten. I'm like, really? That's it? That's pretty shitty. And then Nancy... At least she died saving someone who would then die in the next one, so it didn't matter. But again, if I did mad at for part 4, I would have to get mad at for part 3 because Nancy survived just to die here, and her dad died as well. So part 3 did the same thing as part 4. So you did mad at part 4, you had to get mad at part 3 because it did the same thing. But yet 3 and 4 are my favorites. Well, 4 and 3. So I don't. Weird. I don't. But it's like, man, if I get more mad, but self-sacrifice, but fuck. I'm not counting Freddy vs. Jason. A lot of the deaths are from Jason. I'm not counting the remake. Otherwise, I just have everything in that remake at the bottom. Just fuck the remake. Fuck the bonus, fuck the remix, fuck the remake. Mark Davis, that's the guy in Freddy vs. Jason, like the only guy. I mean, I guess technically he possessed Jason. No, not Jason, but he possessed the guy, the stoner, and then, but Jason killed him, technically. So I don't count that. Really, the only one Freddy killed was he set the guy on fire. And it's just like, not much to that death, honestly. To probably I couldn't even say the word death. Death was death. Death as no, that was the Carlos. Just not much to that death. Just not that imaginative, not that creative. Even the slash on the face looked kind of weak. And the worst death, I think the worst death in the Elm Street franchise is from Part 5, Greta. I never liked that death. I always thought it was stupid. You just feeding her food. And then the effect looks goofy. I always thought this just looked goofy and corny, and like Freddy being a goofball, but he's supposed to be dark, but just be a goofball. Just bon appetit, bitch. Just feeding her. And then, like, they cut out the bit where, in the uncut version, you get a bit more that he's stabbing her and then feeding her. You don't get as much of that in what the cut most people see. It's just like feed her, or she's in the fridge trying to reach out for Alice with this. Even the effect looks fucking goofy. Looks like half a orangutan. Is the orangutan lady? I don't know. I never liked that death. Never did. I thought it was lame and shitty. Just goofy. So that to me is the worst death. So to recap, the top 5 best to me. Turned into a Cockroach in part 4 by Debbie. Being controlled like a puppet and walked off in part 3. Philip felt bad for Grady in part 2. But it didn't make me mad either. Dan being turned to a motorcycle in part 5, very creative. And then Johnny Depp's character in the first film. The worst, Greta, goofy as fuck. Mark Davis, I had to look up the name of the character. That's another reason, because I barely gave a shit about the character. Set on Fire and Freddy vs. Jason. Donald and Nancy, just kind of, especially Donald, John Sachs' character, lame payoffs for their characters for part 1. Kincaid, Kristen, kind of the same. How I felt about Nancy and her dad in part 3. Well, this was part 4. And then Coach Schneider, Marsha Bell's naked ass. And whipping them. So let me whip this video up for you guys. Get it uploaded. Thanks for watching. Thanks once again, David. Hopefully this video sufficed. And we'll see you guys later. And don't have any dreams of Marsha Bell's naked ass, or you'll need Freddy to kill you because you'll have a heart attack. Be careful later.